Jesse, that Ryan Garcia fight was incredible. I don't know if you saw, he put out, he was on Patrick Bet David's podcast. He admitted to trolling all of us. I loved it. I want to see him fight again ASAP.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I mean, my literal immediate reaction to the fight itself was a video about how he trolled all of us. I wish I could brag and say that I knew all along it was a troll. I was 50-50, but either way, we're jumping way too far ahead. Welcome back. It's the Fight Season Podcast. It's me, Jesse Rowe, with Insight Fighting, joined by Adam Fishkin. We're a few days removed from Ryan Garcia shocking the world, beating Devin Haney. Unbelievable performance, dropping him 3 times. Before we get into the details and all of our takes, Adam, what was your reaction when this fight went down and the decision was rendered that Ryan Garcia had won as a plus, what was it, 800 favorite? 600 favorite?
I think he was, as the
underdog?
betting gap. I think he was plus 500, and I think
Okay.
Devin Haney was minus 800.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah.
Man, I was on such a high because on Friday we had PFL, which usually is not that exciting, but we made a whole insider betting show on it, and we got all our picks right. And so I was like, okay, great. Let's keep the ball rolling. Let's see how we do with this Ryan Garcia fight. Obviously, you and I had Haney winning, but we had a lot of little prop bets going, and those prop bets hit. So I was still on that high. But betting aside, I thought it was a great fight. I love how it started. Ryan Garcia came out hot in the first round, absolutely incredible. I actually rewatched the highlights before we recorded this, and the way the fight ended just overshadowed the way it started. But the way it started was absolutely incredible. So
yeah,
I loved it.
Before I get to that, you mentioned insider betting, and the great thing about that is, yes, I did pick Haney to win. You did pick Haney to win, but I think I specifically said that, and it was off of your point, was that Ryan wasn't going to win by knockout on his first shot. So he tags him in the first round, right? And then he drops him 3 times later. And my point was that Ryan wasn't going to be able to win by decision. He was going to have to knock Haney out unless he was able to tag him early, which was to compromise Haney the rest of the fight. It's exactly how it played out. We had the over on 1.5 knockdowns, and we had Garcia was going to win by decision only if he knocked him down early in the fight. It's like we picked it perfectly, but I digress here. The fight was so shocking that I almost feel stupid for being shocked by it. He kind of told us all along what the game was, and all of the videos were, is Ryan Garcia taking this fight seriously? Oh, he's tweeting all this crazy stuff. Oh, he's acting weird. And then there's that funny video of Devin Haney saying, I don't think Ryan Garcia is taking this fight very seriously. What happened? I think it was actually Devin Haney who didn't take Ryan Garcia seriously. And I think that was the mental warfare all along. That was the point of all of this. As you mentioned, the Patrick Bet David interview, where he basically says this was all pre-planned from the beginning. And he essentially used his, I am losing it. I'm drinking all the time. I'm on drugs. I'm talking about the Illuminati. I'm talking about children in the woods and all that stuff. And really what it was is he was absolutely locked in. Was he maybe drinking a little bit during camp? Yeah. But that was the best version of Ryan Garcia we've ever seen. I don't think that there's really any debate about it. He was so much stronger than we've ever seen him. And yes, he did miss weight, which is a problem, and we're going to get to that. But man, I don't think that he could have looked any better in there, truthfully. And I think he's working with Derek James, and the work that he's put in, the improvements that he's shown, and the way that he's able to implement his left hook, just kind of perfect.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan looked better for the majority of the fight. And I think that, I even think that up until the weigh-in, that was all staged. I think he always planned on being a little bit overweight. I don't think he ever cared about the championship. I think that Ryan wanted to show the world that all these fighters are handicapping him, and that when he's not handicapped, he is the best. And I think he showed that. I think he didn't necessarily prove it, because I think at the moment Tank might be the best out there for Ryan, so you might have to prove it against him. But we can touch on that more after as well. But
Yeah.
I think that overall Ryan planned it to the T, executed perfectly, and you really can't give him too many negative points as the way as to how the fight went, right? So I think it was incredible overall.
Yeah, well, let's talk about how the fight went, because Haney clearly lost the first round, right? Ryan tagged him a
100%.
couple of times. Looked like he almost had him out on his feet with the first shot, which was like, whoa, okay, this is real. That was like, it was an immediate thing where I think he sort of snapped everybody into reality a little bit about what was actually going to take place. Where he hit Haney hard with the left hook, and I think it even like it woke Haney up a little bit. Clearly wins the first round, and then it was interesting because I think Haney won like the next 3 rounds. Haney looked really good after that, but he was never quite like fast enough or powerful enough or like in it enough to really do any significant damage to Ryan. I think Ryan was taking rounds off in this fight. I think it was very strategic how the whole fight played out. I think that he was sort of working in sort of how LeBron James is in the Lakers. He sort of works in spurts, and he'll
Yeah.
take some possessions off, and then he'll just really go for it for like the next few possessions. And I think that's what Ryan was doing with the rounds. So those like first the 2, 3, and 4 rounds, and then by like round 6, he was going for blood, and it's got to be a huge emotional hit to Haney to be like kind of to recover like that, and then all of a sudden you think that you're in control of the fight, and you don't. So he drops him the first time, and you don't have control of the fight. So he drops him the first time. I thought that fight should have been called there. I know that like it was just the first drop, but when Haney was getting up, he looked like a guy who had just been knocked out. Like he looked very dazed. He looked very out of it. He was having trouble even getting onto his feet. I think the fight should have been called, or that it could have been called. A lot of people feel like the ref was trying to save Haney, that the ref was sort of Team Haney. What do you think? Do you feel like there was any funny business going on, or do you think that they were just trying to keep the fight going? Because I actually thought it was close to being called right there.
Yeah, I think that with these mega fights, the ref will do absolutely everything to try to keep it going as long as they can, until somebody is fully out. Devin's eyes rolled back when he was when he got knocked down that first time. But I think you're right with your analysis. I think round 1 goes to Garcia. I think rounds 2 to 6, potentially 2 to 5. I'd probably give it 2 to 5. Went to Haney. I think 6, 7. Garcia got them back, especially with 7 being that first knockdown. I think 8, 9, we saw him kind of make a comeback for Haney. And then what was it? 10, 11 was easily for Garcia. And then in the 12th round, Haney like kind of tried, but it wasn't enough to kind of win that, you
Yeah,
know?
well, the fights were just kind of those rounds were just kind of like 50-50 more than anything, which is why I like just
100%.
think that like you can't really give much to them because Haney wasn't really damaging. He might have been like doing some, standard outside boxing, but he wasn't like doing any significant damage. And this is a case of where damage really needs to play a role in how this fight is scored, because regardless of the fact that we feel like he could have easily been knocked out in that first knockdown, how does a judge have it as a draw to begin with? And then Chris Mannix on the broadcast, Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix, has the fight. He's like, oh, my scorecard is a draw after Garcia has just dropped this guy 3 times, dominated him like the final 5 rounds. It was like, what is this thing where people want to like defend Devin Haney? I have a theory that maybe they just didn't like what Ryan was doing on this lead up, and they really were. There was a lot of people rooting against him, especially in
Most
the,
definitely.
the inner boxing circle. But man, I don't understand how the guy that's like the top boxing analyst on this broadcast had the fight as a draw. That just blew my mind. Blew
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting one because every round that Ryan won was almost all of them, because I think there was maybe one or two that wouldn't apply to this, but they were almost all 10-8 rounds, you
Right.
know? So the only round that you can kind of give against Garcia, and the only way they've, like, the way their math was adding up that night, it would have only been a draw because of the point deduction, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you knock someone down 3 times and the other guy, sure, I don't even think he outstruck him, so I can't even say that. But the other guy kind of controlled a lot of the rounds, minus like the knockdowns. They
Or
gave him
in those
too many
rounds
points for
outstruck
that.
him. Right.
Yes,
Right.
correct. But no, it was so clearly Ryan's night to win, and Haney, like, although there were spurts where he looked like the more technically gifted boxer, it also looked like he came in with no game plan, because that left hook that you and I were raving about last week, he didn't have an answer for it at all. At all. He dodged it a couple times, but he never tried to block it. He never tried to defend it. Those were clean shots that Ryan was hitting time and time again. And I think all 3 knockdowns were from that left hook. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, no,
uh,
yeah,
yeah,
they think they were, or at least like created by the left hook. And I
correct.
think what you're kind of trying to say is like Ryan was ready for a scrap. Like Ryan came in sort of clearly the more aggressive fighter. Haney wanted it to be like a kind of a clean fight. Haney likes to fight a clean fight, to sort of do the dance of boxing, like sort of like Floyd does, where he hit, don't get hit, plays a lot of defense. But I think that like Haney was just overwhelmed by the amount, the output of Ryan, because I don't think Ryan was like always landing, but his output was always there, and it was like so fast. It was so overwhelming for Haney that he didn't have an answer for how to defend it. Like he could defend it for a certain amount, but it was just like too much. I almost wanted, I don't want to call it like he was spamming the left hook, but he was kind of spamming the left hook a
He
little bit,
was, but
and
we
it
knew he
worked.
would.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Totally. I just
So
thought it was crazy how you knew a guy was coming into the fight faster than you, stronger than you, and you're the more technical fighter, and there was still no answer for it. You know,
right.
the most damage Haney did that night were those shots to like the kidney, I think.
Well,
You know,
Ryan's
like
like
to like
turning his
the
back to him.
yeah, and like those, like, sure they hurt, but they're
Yeah.
not doing damage. You know, and if that's the best you're gonna do all night, then it's a pretty poor night overall. You know, so it was a tough watch on his part, I think.
Yeah. Um, this also opens up the conversation about Lomachenko, the Lomachenko fight, because people feel like Haney or that Loma was robbed when they fought. And I was thinking about it. Oh, I actually should have been more aware that this was going to happen, because he probably did. Haney probably lost the Lomachenko fight, and Loma does not have the power or speed anymore that Garcia has. And Haney took some shots in that fight, and I was thinking about it like, oh, if Garcia lands any of these, the ones that Loma landed, he's gonna take out Haney. I should have looked into that a little bit more closely, because I think that could have swayed my decision. I think that Ryan even fooled me a little bit with his promotional lead up, where I was concerned that he wasn't taking it as seriously as he should. Made apparent by the videos that I made afterwards. But let's talk about the lead up. What did you, in terms of the promotion and how it was executed? He's admitted now that a lot of it was a joke, even though he does have ADHD. I do think he's a little kooky, but I think that like he was really leaning into the craziness of it all.
Yeah.
What do you think about the promotional lead up of this fight? Would you say it was successful? Would you say it's something that you want, that because I don't know if he can pull this off again. I think that the jig is up, right? So he can't really repeat the same strategy. But in terms of like just sort of creating this character, it's almost like a WWE character a little bit that he was putting on for a couple months. What did you think overall?
I think people are forgetful. I think he can definitely do it again.
Okay.
I think it was very Conor McGregor esque. You
Yeah.
know, I think we've seen Conor do it. Maybe not to that extent, but they put on a show, and I love it. I think the sport of boxing needs it. It's been around for a long time, but with the UFC on the rise, boxing is kind of like a dying sport minus your superstars, you know? Um, like, I don't know about you, but I might have recognized one other name on that card
Yeah,
and
right.
like no one else. And so the sport of boxing needs it. The sport of fighting in general just needs more people like that, you know? You have to build up the fight. You have to put on a show. The fights are sold before the fight happens, you know?
Right.
And as a fighter, that's where you make your money, you know? And that's why people like Ryan, that's why people like Connor, that's why they get paid more than anyone else, you know? That's why Sean Strickland is still relevant, although Sean is he's not he's not putting
Right.
up an act. But at the same time, when you say wild shit and when you act all crazy and when you put on a massive show for everyone to entertain the people, there's a lot of value for it for you as a fighter and for your stock value in a sense, you know?
Yeah, well, I think that, like, you mentioned Connor. I think that it's more so that, like, it's not that what Ryan was doing was Conor McGregor-esque. It's that what Conor McGregor did laid the groundwork for promotional strategy the way that Ryan Garcia implemented. So we used to see like Muhammad Ali being, well, not me, I wasn't alive, but I'm saying like you know the old Muhammad Ali videos of him, the way that he would talk trash and promote fights. You know, that was kind of shocking at the time. That was kind of unheard of. Conor McGregor comes around and he was so good on the microphone. His trash talk was so unique. It was unlike anything that we've ever seen. It was also crazy. It was like a little disrespectful. People thought it was crossing the line. Now you have guys like Sean Strickland. Now you have guys like Colby Covington. And now you have what Ryan Garcia just did. And that is definitely inspired by the Conor McGregor rise to success in the UFC, which I think is a good thing because I do think boxing needs some of that UFC in the sport, as you said, because the fight cards, yeah, you can put on super fights. It's hard to put on super cards because it's hard to get like 5 big fights all in one card, whereas UFC 300 had like 6 or 7 fights that had serious implications behind it, all on one card. So yeah, I agree. I think that you're gonna. It's good. It's a great way to sell a fight. I just hope that he can be a little more creative next time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see him do the same thing again. I want him to like up the stakes a little bit. Like I want to
Yeah.
see like a. I don't know how to describe it. Like I don't know. If I think of it, I'll tweet it. I don't know what to say. Anyways,
Yeah.
um,
No, but you're right. You're right. I'd love to see it again. You know, like again, the sport needs it. There
yeah,
was even you brought up UFC 300. I would argue that UFC 302 with Poirier versus Makachev and Strickland Costa. That's a bigger card than we just saw with Garcia Haney. You know, like those are two bigger fights. And I'm sure there's going to be a couple more on that, but yeah, boxing just needs it. They need more personality. Nobody has personality. You look at Haney. Haney's quiet. You know, he doesn't say much. He'll talk a little bit of trash when he gets the opportunity, like he did with Ryan. But other than that, he's pretty quiet. Tank, quiet. You know, you need people like Ryan Garcia in your sport that they'll help you make more money and get more views and just grow as a whole.
I said it during the Tank fight. He was carrying that promotion on his back. Did the same thing with this. That's why I think betting that or losing that 1.5 million on the weight bet like wasn't that big of a deal for him, because it was almost like part of the promotion itself. It was just a little added layer. Like, oh my God, this guy's costing himself
Of course.
1.5 million. Well, he probably made 15 times that. He also, you saw that he bet $2 million on himself.
I
Uh,
was just gonna say, can we talk about that and how
yeah,
absolutely insane that is?
Yeah, bet $2 million on himself as I guess based on the odds that I'm looking at, plus 600 it sounds like,
Yeah,
and made $12 million. So a
that's
$10 million
insane.
profit, betting on himself.
How does that even work? Didn't the guy in the NBA just get banned for that
Yeah,
for like
I don't.
life?
I guess the rules in boxing are different. It's the same thing with like Shohei Ohtani. Everybody's freaking out about that. His interpreter would have been placing bets on baseball with Shohei's money, which would have been a disaster. In some sports leagues, it is absolutely frowned upon. And in boxing, I would imagine it's only an issue if he's betting on himself to lose. The
Correct.
question
Correct.
is like, if you're betting on the real only problem would be, okay, well, if you're betting $2 million on yourself to win, then we have to look into if Devin Haney was throwing the fight. You know what I mean? That's where
Yeah.
you're like,
Of
that's where it gets murky, right?
course.
Because that's where your mind goes. I'm guessing there's some sort of rule I'm not aware of. I don't want to
Yeah.
speculate on something that I don't know legally
Of
and how it
course.
works with boxing, but I'm guessing that he's allowed to do that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it publicly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree,
um,
man. Well, Ryan Garcia, he already had it, but he doubled down on my respect after that fight. You know,
he
I
did
loved it.
everybody, man.
I think it was great. I think I can't wait for his next fight. I really can't.
Yeah, well,
Um,
let's get into that because we're
let's
running
do
out of
it.
time here. What's next for Ryan? What do you think he should do? Because he called out Gervonta Davis and he says that he was down to run it back with Boots Ennis, Jaron Ennis.
Yeah.
What would you rather see?
I'd love to see him fight against Ennis. Well, okay, let me start with this. I'd love to see Ryan Garcia fight against Gervonta Davis again.
Yeah,
I think him versus Tank, I think that was a great fight. I'd love to see it again. I hate the way it ended. It felt unfulfilling in a sense, you know, when a fight ends like that. So I'd love to see Tank versus Garcia run it back. But I do think Garcia needs to take a couple fights, maybe one, probably two fights against maybe smaller people. Um, Pad the stats a little bit, but also, you know, just chill out for a little bit before you get right back in there. I think Ennis is a great fight. And yeah, I'd love to see it again. I think that's a great call out.
yeah. Well, I think because he would have to fight Ennis at 147 because he said that he can't make 140, which was weird to me because he made 136 at a catch weight to fight Tank. So he says that he can't go below 143 anymore. I don't know. That was weird to me. But so he says he's moving up to 147. Tank fights at 135 and 140. He'll go back and forth. I think it has to be the Tank fight, but I agree. Like he'll have to fight another like Oscar Duarte type in between just to get sort of
Exactly.
another fight under his belt. But he is ready to fight all the big names. He's the only one in all of boxing that genuinely seems like he wants to just take the biggest fights possible constantly. It's almost like influencer boxing strategy. Like just make the biggest fight possible rather than worrying about losing. He is not worried about losing. I respect the hell out of it. It has to be Tank, but he was weight drained in that fight, in that first fight. The rehydration clause
Yeah.
absolutely killed him. You saw the photos going around social media, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of
Yeah. No, we got to do the fight again, but on Ryan's terms, or maybe not on Ryan's terms, but a little bit, you know, just
just
even out
allow
the
him to
playing field.
rehydrate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And
Does
and
this
if the fight was
version
at 140, it'd be great to see as well. You know, I think it was at 135 last time, correct?
Yeah, it was 136 catch weight. 136 catch weight.
Okay.
And he wasn't allowed to rehydrate more than 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So
Brutal.
let's end it here then. Um, does this version of Ryan Garcia that we saw against Devin Haney, does he beat Gervonta Davis? Oh, did we cut out?
You cut out. You're back
All
now.
right.
Did this version of Ryan Garcia?
All right. Does this version of Ryan Garcia beat Gervonta Davis?
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think so. I think you put a little bit more muscle on Ryan. I think he can take bigger shots. Although we didn't really get to see it against Haney, but I think Tank's got power. But I think you level out the playing field, and I think we saw what Ryan Garcia could do. I don't think he lays out Tank. He might. He'd probably knock him down once. I don't think he knocks him out. It probably goes to decision. Coin toss on decision, but I think he can get the win over Tank, and then we see a part three, and what's better than that?
I don't think I was fully aware of just how big of an issue the weight draining was. Because I thought that was like an excuse that a lot of people were using. But just after seeing that fight, that's all the proof I need to know that, like, okay, the rehydration clause really limited Ryan's ability to compete against Tank in that fight. I'm not saying he would win, but I think it's a very, very, very close fight. And if the odds were heavily favoring Tank and Ryan was an underdog, I would take the odds on Ryan. Just simply because he proved us wrong once. He could prove us wrong again.